Am I the a-hole for reverse trick or treating with my wife? Good evening. This happened a few nights ago, but I just heard it was causing drama today. My wife and I moved into our neighborhood a few weeks ago, and we live somewhat rural. We're in a small town under 5,000 people, but have about 4 dozen homes within a 20-minute walk. We know there aren't any kids in the neighborhood, and we're told to expect no trick-or-treaters. So my wife and I dressed up in costumes we had easy access to, nothing controversial or inappropriate, and stocked up on candy. We made little baggies for each house in our neighborhood with about a dozen fun-sized pieces of candy in each. On Halloween night, we went from house to house and about half the people opened for us. We'd give them candy, introduce ourselves, and move on. We started around 6:30 p.m. and finished around 8:30 p.m. We started far out and moved back in towards home towards a few people we had casually met. Today, while getting the mail, my wife overheard a group of people talking about the new, weird neighbors who decided to take up a chunk of everyone's evening on a Saturday night. That mixed with two of the houses on our route telling us that people don't do that kind of thing in our neighborhood, and one telling us we're going to burn in hell for celebrating a satanic holiday, has me thinking that A, we have at least one loony neighbor, but B, maybe we have had crossed a line in going out in that evening. I'm dismissing the satanic panic right away, but with multiple people telling us we weren't welcome and that stuff my wife overheard, I'm wondering, were we out of line? Are we the a-holes? Thank you.
NTA, but word of advice, small rural communities aren't always that friendly, especially to people they consider different. I hope this blows over, but you might have just become weirdos for a while. I once moved to a small town for a bit, was excited since people like to hype how close everyone is, but literally the only compliment you will get is bless your heart, which PS, is not a compliment. Turns out people are rude everywhere, although at least when I lived in law they had the decency to flip you off for a second and then move on with their day. Sorry for the rant, just not a fan of rural towns. Back on topic, what you did sounds very nice, and far more than what I've done when I greet new neighbors. If a few minutes to meet the new neighbors is inconveniencing them, then just ignore them from now on. Your neighborhood sounds a bit rigid, but to be honest, I might think this was cute, but also irked that strangers invited themselves to my house to chat. I know this is weird, and I'm not even an introvert, but for some reason, when I'm in my house I just do not want to be bothered. I know a few people like this, actually. You're nah, but I'm not shocked that people didn't universally welcome this. Especially post-pandemic, when at least in America, people spent tons of time alone and are still reintegrating in some parts. Although the satanic thing, that's ridiculous. Your neighborhood sounds easy to stay away from with people like these, that's for sure. This is where I'm at too. Well, they're not assholes. I'd find this weird and a bit intrusive, especially on the night before Halloween, when I'm not prepared to deal with strangers at my door. I have zero interest in strangers knocking on my door just to introduce themselves and then make awkward small talk, especially since we're still in pandemic times and restrictions have only recently started to loosen in my province. And while 8:30 p.m. may not be late to you, if you're in a mill town or anywhere with shift workers, that can be too late. My so is often in bed by 8 p.m. to be up for 4:30 a.m. for work the next day. If I'm out in the front yard or walking the dog, then it's fair game for a brief introduction. NTA, sort of. I don't think you're assholes. But I think just knocking on people's doors and introducing yourselves, offering candy is as rude as a Jehovah's Witness knocking on your door uninvited. I get that you meant well, and it was meant to be a bit of fun, but it could be awkward or weird for some people, or even frightening for others, being as it's quite unusual to have a dressed up couple knock on your door at night, offering you candy. Obviously I don't care about the satanic stuff, but if you'd done that to me, I probably would throw away the candy, as it's not worth risking swallowing a needle or something. I wouldn't really have appreciated the interruption at that time at night, because I'd probably be in bed before 8:30 as I start early for work. I'm not going YTA, but you probably shouldn't have done it and you probably shouldn't do it again. People generally will indicate on Halloween if they want anyone knocking by turning on or turning off their porch light, but that's harder to convey unexpectedly the night before Halloween. And 1. Many people don't really enjoy strangers showing up at their door unexpectedly, and or 2. May have been in the midst of dinner bath bedtime routines with kids at that time. But that in no way makes you guys are either, and it was an incredibly fun, sweet, creative way to try to get to know new neighbors. In small towns, people can be very closed-minded to newcomers and hold tightly to tradition, or the right way over common sense. And the holier than thou church ladies, bred from birth to clutch their pearls. They will all either get over themselves, or they won't. Helps a lot with easily sorting who is worth your time and energy. Happy belated Halloween. Introvert here. I'm always weirded out by people knocking on my door, and I hate having to make small talk. I'm assuming you were only at each house for 5 minutes or so. I'd probably think you were weirdly social but be excited about candy. I definitely wouldn't think you were an asshole. I'll take candy any day over someone telling me I'm going to hell if I don't join their Bible study group, or trying to sell me a new electricity supplier, or pounding on my door when I'm ass naked and about to jump in the shower and have to scramble to throw on clothes only to find 3 police officers at my door because they apparently can't read apartment numbers. NTA. YTA. On Halloween night, if people aren't set up for trick-or-treaters, it's pretty clear they are demonstrating they do not like the event and are explicitly stating they want to be left alone. You barreled over all those obvious statements, and 2 full-grown adult strangers are now on their doorstep in the evening. It also wasn't even Halloween. You went out the day before. You stated it was because you didn't want to interrupt anyone Sunday, so you already had idea you were already going to be perceived in the wrong. I can see why people think you were being weird. I don't subscribe to these people's mindset or dislike for Halloween, but you were definitely the asshole. It's a case of not reading the room at all. The comments afterwards weren't warranted, however, but it sounds like the wrong way to make a first impression for that neighborhood. NTA. I think it was a unique idea and would have appreciated it. Now the satanic stuff, some people really believe that. I lived in South Carolina, and about half the homes in the neighborhood did not participate in Halloween, and I heard the satanic reason a lot. If you move into my neighborhood, I like Snickers, Milky Way, beer, and whiskey. You could give out little mini bottles of Jack Daniels.